Greetings and thank you for joining us today for this recorded webinar on a behind the scenes look into some of our processes here at the State Library of Florida. This is very exciting. It's a sneak peek into some of the processes and projects that you may not know we have been and are currently working on. And this webinar is going to be recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube page shortly after, and a copy of it will be sent to your email as well. We'll have time for questions at the end, but feel free to send those in at any time. Okay? Just want to make sure you guys are all able to see my slides, correct? Awesome, awesome. So my name is Michaela Westmoreland, and I serve as both the Florida Collection and the Outreach Librarian for the State Library. This means that in addition to giving presentations like this one today, my job involves collection development for the Florida Special Collection and taking part in our reference services. So if you would like to follow up with me later, you can see my contact information here. Feel free to do so. Before we deep dive, I would like to give an overview of our services. This includes benefits of signing up for a state library card. After that, I'll dive into the work we do to create and maintain our collections, followed by a behind the scenes look into a few recent projects. We'll end by touching on our desktop delivery service with time for questions at the end. Again, feel free to send those in at any time. Oh, you don't hear anything? Is anybody else not able to hear anything? Okay, I would recommend if you can't hear any audio to maybe try and log back in again. Okay? You might want to give them a moment to go ahead and do that. Awesome. Okay. We will see you soon. Um, I'll go ahead and just give a little bit of an overview of our services. So at the State Library, we do offer specialized research assistance in person as well as over the phone and email. This means that not only do we serve state employees local to Tallahassee, but we serve state employees across the state. We provide interlibrary loan services, meaning that if there's a publication that you're looking for and you're not, and you don't really already see it in our collections, we cooperate with a network of libraries to retrieve the publication that you need from elsewhere statewide. Um, we also offer a table of content service, which allows state employees to request articles via email from popular magazines, as well as peer-reviewed journals connected to their discipline. On top of that, we provide 24/7 access to electronic databases, which provide useful articles for your research. Lastly, we provide on-demand scanning of library documents with the caveat that scanning is limited to staff availability and copyright restrictions. So if you have any questions or are having trouble with any of these services and are in need of assistance, feel free to contact us at our regularly staffed reference desk, either via the phone or email, which you can see here on this slide. So if you haven't already, it will be necessary for you to obtain a state library card in order to make use of our services that the state library offers to state employees remotely, including use of our databases and checking out items through us or interlibrary loan. So this is the form on the right where you would go to apply for the card. And once you apply, you'll receive your card within 3 business days of your application. When accessing the electronic databases, you'll be prompted for your full 14-digit library card number and PIN, which you will end up choosing during the application process. If you already have a library card that you applied for, years ago, you may have a PIN that is likely the last 4 digits of the work phone number we have on file for you. as that used to be how we assigned PIN numbers. For any questions concerning library cards, please do contact our circulation staff. Their contact is right here on this slide. Okay, let's get into it a little bit. So, the State Library of Florida has a long history of collecting and preserving materials that support the state's government and its employees. As outlined in Florida Statute 257.04, we provide services and resources to assist state employees with their professional duties. Our collection development process is designed to ensure that our materials are relevant, useful, and accessible to the people of Florida. As the Florida Collection Librarian, my role is to develop and maintain the State Library of Florida's collection of materials that reflect the state's history, culture, and interests. I do this by selecting books, journals, digital resources, and other materials that meet specific criteria, such as those based on things like relevance, quality, and rarity. I look for materials that are relevant to Florida's demographics, offer diverse perspectives, and provide educational and research value. In addition to selecting new publications, thank you, Angela. In addition to selecting new publications, I also work to acquire rare and unique publications that are significant to Florida's history and culture. This includes rare books, manuscripts, maps, and other materials that provide valuable insights into the state's past. These materials are often one of a kind or difficult to find, and they help to fill the gaps in our collections. So, as we strive to build our collections, we recognize that our research can only go so far. That's kind of where you guys come in. As experts in your fields and as Florida citizens, you may have personal insight into items that could be valuable additions to our collections. Or you may have knowledge about rare or unique publications that are relevant to our mission. We encourage you to share your expertise with us by suggesting items you think we may wish to acquire through donation or purchase. We take your input seriously because we want to do our best to serve you as state employees. We understand that our collections are a valuable resource for your work, and we're committed to building a collection that reflects the diversity and complexity of Florida's history and culture. To make it easier for you to suggest items for our collection, we've created a form that you can use to submit your suggestions. You can access the form by clicking on this link provided on the slide, and we'll review your suggestions and consider them for acquisition or donation. And let me go ahead and link that here just for you guys in the chat. There we go. So, the State Library of Florida and the State Archives of Florida have different donation processes, but both are committed to preserving and making available historical materials for research and education. The state archives collect original documents such as letters, financial records, legal documents, photographs, and sound recordings, things like that will provide unique insights into Florida's history and development. These one-of-a-kind items can be of local or statewide significance, but the archives typically focuses on collecting materials that are significant to Florida's history and development. In a little bit of a contrast, the State Library of Florida accepts a wide range of donations, but we prioritize published materials that are related to Florida or that are missing from our collections. We are interested in acquiring genealogical works, state publications, fiction and nonfiction books about Florida, rare and hard to find items on these topics, and other materials that support our mission to promote literacy and preserve Florida's cultural heritage. If you are interested in donating materials to our library, you can start by contacting us through phone or email. You can also visit us in person to discuss your donation. I love when people come in to ask if they are able to donate things and get to see them in person. It's always nice. So once you've decided to donate and we've discussed the item's viability and meeting the scope of our collections, we'll end up asking you to sign a gift policy release form, which outlines our procedures for processing and preserving your donated materials. We'll then take possession of your donation and begin the process of cataloging and preserving it for future generations, should we decide it is a good fit for our collections. It's worth noting here that we work closely with the State Archives of Florida to ensure that your donation is properly cared for and preserved. In some cases, we may transfer items to the archives or other institutions if they are more suitable for their collections. Conversely, we may also receive items from the archives or other institutions that are relevant to our own collections. Our goal at the end of the day is to ensure that your donation is preserved and made available to the public in a way that honors your contribution. The goal here of processing is to make our collections available to patrons, not to spend too much time on processing itself. In fact, over processing can end up being quite detrimental to our collections. So by focusing on making items available to patrons rather than spending too much time on the processing phase, we can strike a pretty good balance between processing and accessibility. Conducting a preservation survey is something that is crucial in identifying potential issues or damage to collection items. This ends up helping prioritize any necessary repairs or conservation work, ensuring that the collection is well preserved and protected for years to come. However, this step is also something that shouldn't be overly extensive, as it can take away from the overall goal of making the collection accessible to people like you. We also arrange them in a logical and consistent manner. This makes it easier for staff and patrons to find what they're looking for and helps maintain the overall organization and structure of a collection. Just like the other steps, it should be done efficiently without over-processing individual items. Often collections can be and should be, if possible, kept in their original order, which greatly reduces processing time. When these items are sent for cataloging, they are added to the library's catalog and made available for patrons. This is an important step in making collections accessible to the public, and it's a key part of the overall process. By striking a balance between the processing and accessibility of this phase, we can ensure that your donation is well organized, easily accessible, and ready for use by our patrons. And here you can see some folders from our campaign literature collection, like our general ephemera collection, which we will learn about in a bit. It contains ephemeral items such as campaign mailers, bumper stickers, and flyers, all that good stuff. Now on to digitization. Um, First and foremost, digitizing collections is a process that can take a very long time. Furthermore, there are some things that just can't be digitized. For example, artifacts that are too fragile or delicate to be handled, like this map that you see here from 1911, make it impossible to digitize. In these cases, we need to prioritize based on rarity and focus on preservation and conservation efforts to ensure the item's safety and longevity. Another challenge that we face is copyright restrictions in this stage of the process. The data publication can be a major obstacle when it comes to digitizing materials. So works published in the 20th century and later are often still under copyright, which means we can't digitize them without permission from the copyright holder. This can be a pretty complex and time-consuming process, and it's not always possible to obtain the necessary permissions. A good example is if you have a book published in 1985, we can't really digitize that without obtaining permission from the copyright holder or waiting for the copyright to expire. This can be a pretty significant limitation when it comes to digitizing collections, as many valuable materials are still under copyright. In some cases, we may be able to digitize materials that are in the public domain, such as works published before 1923. However, even in these cases, we do need to be careful in reviewing the materials to ensure that they are not under copyright or have any other restrictions that would prevent us from digitizing them. For the majority of items, especially those post 1923, digitization is just not something that's really feasible. We need to carefully plan and execute each step of the process, from selecting materials to scanning, cataloging, and quality control. So this requires a significant number of resources, including staff expertise, equipment, and storage space that we simply can't really maintain alongside all of the other work that we do for people like you. So where do we actually store our digitized items? We use several platforms to make our collections accessible to the public. I've outlined them here on this slide. Um, so that includes the Internet Archive, which is a digital library that provides permanent access to digitized materials, as well as our catalog, which is a database of our collection items that allows users to search and discover new materials, and Florida Memory, a platform via the State Archives of Florida that provides online access to historical photographs, documents, and other materials from Florida's past. Let me go ahead and link those here for you guys so that you can easily kind of peruse those at like your leisure. So let's see. Here's one. This next one is for our catalog, and then for Florida Memory. There you go. So on to projects. The first one that we will start with is Florida Wildlife. So for over 60 years, Florida Wildlife has been a trusted source of information on conservation, wildlife, and the great outdoors. From its inception in 1947, the magazine has regularly published the latest news and updates on natural resource conservation, hunting and fishing regulations, and stunning photographs and paintings of wildlife and outdoor scenes. Moreover, it has provided valuable insights on how to engage children in environmental activities, encouraging the next generation to appreciate and protect the natural world. Thanks to the cooperation of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, every issue of Florida Wildlife has been digitized despite being in copyright, making it easy for readers to access this rich collection. Over the years, the magazine has published thousands of pages featuring profiles of Florida's incredible wildlife, including mammals, reptiles, birds, and even stories about wildlife officers and citizens. From fascinating tales of strange events and legends to insightful articles on environmental conservation, Florida Wildlife has been a treasure trove of information for anyone interested in the natural world. And a great example is readers can explore the magazine's coverage of unusual events reported in Florida, such as sightings of black panthers in 1961 and the mysterious lost volcano in 1963. No, there was no actual volcano. The steam rising from the Wassissa Swamp was just a very fascinating phenomenon that captured the imagination of many readers. Today, readers can discover the truth behind this specific legend by accessing the June 1963 edition of Florida Wildlife online. This remarkable project is a definite testament to the importance of preserving our natural heritage and making it accessible for future generations. By exploring Florida wildlife, readers can gain a deeper understanding of the state's unique ecosystem, learn about conservation efforts, and appreciate the beauty and diversity of Florida wildlife. In this project, state employees from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission worked together with librarians and archivists to digitize and make available online thousands of pages of historical content. This collaboration demonstrates how state employees can work together to make our collections more accessible to everyone. So by sharing our expertise and resources, we can end up creating a wealth of valuable information that benefits not only ourselves, but also our communities and future generations. The next project. So this is the Florida Special Collection. This is from the Florida Special Collection within the State Library of Florida. So we are very fortunate to have received a remarkable donation of over 600 crate labels from the estate of Harold and Geraldine Haskins. The Haskins family, who operated an antique shop in Micanopy for many years, were well-known collectors of fruit and vegetable labels. Harold in particular was renowned among collectors for his expertise in this area. These crate labels date back to the late 19th century and were used by packing and shipping companies to advertise their products. They provide a unique glimpse into the history of Florida's citrus industry and showcase the creativity and innovation of the companies that produce them. The labels feature a wide range of designs from simple and straightforward to elaborate and colorful, and include images of family members and pets, adding a personal touch to the collection. The collection includes labels from various companies. So that includes the Alturas Packing Company, LC Bilberry Fruit Company, and W.E. Burkest. These labels are not only valuable as historical artifacts, but also as examples of design and advertising from the past. The collection is now housed at the State Library of Florida, where it is available for research and study by scholars and enthusiasts alike. And I ended up including one of my favorite ones on here. I think it is very romantic and eye-catching. So, on to one of the very grueling projects that we have undergone most recently. So, as a little backstory, microfilm is a medium in which photographs are taken of items for long-term storage. We have more than 40,000 rolls of items on microfilm, which quite a few items quite a few items per roll, including newspapers, marriage records, and other materials, many of which no longer exist in their physical paper forms. Microfilm is a durable format, which makes it especially useful for preserving information, um, such as newspapers, so that it remains readable for decades to come. The library's goal is to have entire runs of Florida newspapers on microfilm, at least as much as possible. We can only do so much, but we do everything that we can. Um, So we have editions starting at the inception of the newspaper, or in some cases at the earliest date, a microfilm copy is available, and do our best to get them coming forward until either the present day or when the newspaper itself ceased operation. Um, there are a few types of microfilm themselves. The first type is nitrate film, which is an older medium. It's highly flammable and can't be extinguished once ignited, which makes it obviously not the best choice. And we don't take in this medium for that reason. Next is acetate film, which was first introduced in 1934 to replace nitrate film. However, it is also unstable, though thankfully not self-igniting and flammable like nitrate. Instead, it undergoes a process we know as vinegar syndrome, or the official name acetate film base degradation. So this is a condition that results from the deterioration of cellulose acetate over the lifespan of a film. As this syndrome progresses, it causes the film to become brittle, shrink, and take on a very acidic odor, which smells, as the name suggests, like vinegar. Um, this film also has a lifespan of about 50 years before the degradation takes place. So, unfortunately, a lot of our film is acetate, including our older historical newspapers. So, this has been a pretty stinky case of ours for a while now. Thankfully, there is a solution. We have been working on the replacement of these microfilm before total degradation takes place. Um, and that's where polyester microfilm comes in. This was first introduced in the 1980s and is the only film base stable enough to be recommended for preservation microfilming. Black and white polyester film has a life expectancy of over 500 years under proper storage conditions as well, which makes it a quite ideal candidate for this project. Um, and to the side here, you can see some testing of vinegaring and non-vinegaring microfilm. Um, a fun fact is that you might see us referencing to these items as N1, which is an internal nickname. Um, N is part of the cataloging schema that someone chose a long time ago, and N1 just happened to be the first roll, thus the N1 collection. So as part of this preservation effort, we have undertaken a thorough inventory of the suspected vinegaring microfilm. We cross-referenced the items with the University of Florida's digital newspaper library, as well as the Record Center, to determine the rarity and significance of each item. This process helped us identify which items needed to be replaced. Unfortunately, many of the items were found to be newer additions to our collection, acquired after 2000, and therefore did not require replacement. They were in the same drawer as some of the other vinegaring microfilm, and because of the pungent smell transferring, it had to be quality checked alongside the ones that were actually vinegaring. That means we could separate those and move on to the more significant majority of items which are older and in need of replacement. Thankfully, the University of Florida has digitized a large portion of the newspapers on these microfilm, approximately 100 reels worth. So this has allowed us to easily deaccession these items and avoid the need for replacement. The other nearly 150 reels, however, require replacement with newer polyester microfilm. So we are currently working on closing on this project and are in the process of ordering replacements as we speak. This has been a ongoing endeavor for almost a year now, and we are very excited to see it come to completion with the goal of making these materials accessible for future generations. So the Knott House maps. This is another in-progress project close to completion. So for a bit of backstory, the Knott House is a historic house dating back to 1843, when it was most likely built by George Proctor, a free black builder. Attorney Thomas Hagner and his wife Catherine Gamble became the home's first residents the following year. Um, and in July 2023, the Museum of Florida History Research and Collections team inventoried a couple of boxes of Knott family materials that were in storage for a number of years in the attic of this house. And we received word that they may be best housed as part of the library's collection. We met with them soon after to appraise the materials and ultimately decided to keep a large grouping of maps to be added to the Florida map collection. Now, the Florida Map Collection, being a collection going all the way back to the 16th century, has well over 2,000 maps, and includes things like transportation maps, city maps, nautical charts, and even charts depicting the location of shipwrecks. Since then, our team has been inventorying and processing these materials, and we're very excited to share some of our findings with you. Um, in total, we took in 20 maps and a handful of periodicals and newspapers. And as part of this process, we discovered that several of the maps were quite damaged and in need of preservation work. A few of these, as shown a few slides ago, were damaged beyond possible digitization. That was the 1911 map that you saw a bit ago. So the vast majority, on the other hand, we have been working on to get preserved and digitized. So they were in good enough condition for us to go ahead and get them digitized. Um, One such case, as you can see here, is a 1913 map showing the land embraced in State Prison Tract in Bradford County, Florida, which is a location we previously had no maps of. So um, the newspapers and periodicals that we also accepted along with these maps, um, we did, after accepting to take them in, are looking forward into further processing of them and possibly assessing for viability in our collection or in the collections of other institutions. And on this slide, you can see some of the research side of this work. We worked diligently to get a greater understanding of this material, the history behind it, its rarity, and its place in our collection. Many of the materials are still in their conservation or encapsulation stage, which is the stage right before we can actually catalog them and make them public. So we are hopeful that many of these items will make it to the shelf very soon. The ephemera collection is a collection that contains a wide range of non-commercial, non-book publications, including things like pamphlets, brochures, and other types of advertisements. These materials also offer a unique glimpse into the social, political, and cultural lives of underrepresented groups in Florida, including working class people, women, African Americans, and immigrants. The collection has been acquired through donation and is significant for its ability to reflect contemporary sociopolitical movements and developments in Florida. So to make these materials more accessible, I have ended up developing a plan to digitize and catalog them, which involves selecting one item from each folder um, to digitize and then add to our online catalog, which will allow patrons to discover and access the materials before they are fully processed. This approach will also provide breathing room to continue processing the collection in the future. And as you can see here on the slide, this is one of the first items to be digitized from this collection, which is a brochure for McKee's Sunken Treasure Fortress in Treasure Harbor, Plantation Key, Florida. So this is now available digitally on our catalog and on Internet Archive. So in addition to digitizing and cataloging, I've also created a collection policy that outlines our general policies, selection principles, and workflow for adding new materials, as well as weeding procedures. Um, on top of that, that also includes collection priorities, future review and evaluation of the collection, and discussion of the Florida Special Collection resource page, which will hopefully become available online in the near future. So there's a lot of different things going on for this project. The ultimate goal is to provide a streamlined process for future librarians and staff to follow in cataloging and digitizing items for online access from this collection. The trial and error involved in this project can also be applied to other outstanding collections, such as our political ephemera collection and vertical files, both of which are also, for the most part, completely undiscoverable, so they don't really have a digital presence at this moment. It's really the hope that the work put into this project can be translated to many others in the future, and that the documentation undergone will help lead those working for us years down the line in handling the preservation and discoverability of these items for our patrons. Um, so that is it for the highlighted projects we are and have been working on behind the scenes. So I'm going to move on to a few key services for state employees now. Um, so one thing you may not know is that the state library subscribes to a number of titles, both from professional publications, professional periodicals, and general interest periodicals. So you'll have some titles that are geared towards professionals, such as, the Journal of Florida Engineering Society, but then you'll have general interest titles like the New Yorker, Smithsonian, Harper's, National Geographic, things like that. So what we can offer is our table of content service. So if you submit this form and indicate all the titles you are interested in, what we'll end up doing is that every time we have a new issue in, we'll scan the table of contents and send that to you. And then from there, you can take a look at the table of contents, take stock of any articles that pique your interest, and email us back that you would like us to scan, and we'll scan those articles and deliver them to you via email. So again, it's just another great way to access this information without having to pay for a subscription yourself. And I'll go ahead and link that. So moving on, here we have our current alerts. So if you find yourself searching consistently for articles or dissertations or books on a particular subject area, you can set up a current alert, which will basically just compile all the materials that are tagged under your particular subject area. Um, So if, for example, you're continuously searching for articles relating to economic growth in Florida, for example, this current alert service will compile new articles within your subject area and let you know via email when they're available. The same goes for EBSCO ebooks. You can set up alerts through there as well. So this is all our current alerts on this page for the state library from the state library website. And here, excuse me, here are links to the resources mentioned today, as well as a few others. You can find these in the slideshow, which will end up being sent to your email after the recording has been published, or in the uploaded recording, which will make its way to our YouTube page in the coming days. Um, Again, I want to thank you guys so much for viewing this webinar. I really hope you've gained some clarity on how we work for you and some of the more intricate projects we take part in to make our materials available to patrons like you. And please do let us know if you have any questions, either now or through one of our other communication avenues. Okay, I'd like to take any further questions if you have any. We'll end up staying on for a few extra minutes in case anyone does. And then I'll also leave it on this page just to keep it up for our contact info. Can state employees continue to use this library after they retire? So you can, but you will have to get a library card we have different library cards. So there's ones for state employees, there's one for library staff, and then there's also one for general citizens of Florida. So you would end up getting one of those library cards just for someone who isn't a state employee, and you'd be able to come in to use our databases on site. Unfortunately, remote access is only for state employees, but you can come in, you can use our research services, and you can check out books. Are the slides available for download? Yes, they will be available once they're put up on the YouTube page. You can view them that way. You will also be sent a copy through your email once we get that all settled afterwards. So you will be receiving an email with a survey as well as the slides. Of course. Yeah, and again, feel free to use the contact information here. If you ever have any questions, if you're trying to use any of our services and you can't really figure something out, we're always here to help. Thank you all for attending. If you do have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat now too. We'll stay on for just a couple more minutes. Yeah, those projects are very interesting. I took part in working on both of those, so it was definitely a lot of work, but we love, you know, doing that kind of thing to make items available for our patrons.